So, Swong Sim, leaderboards, game quality, mental game session. Welcome everybody watching. What are we doing today, Wubs?
What are we doing today? So we decided today that we're going to take a pause from strategy, which I don't think we've ever done, Tom, to be fair.
Since starting this, no, we've done everything. Every session we've done so far has been technical, and it's definitely been something we've talked about before where, like, we should probably do about half the games as mental, not just technical, and we've done none of our sessions.
None of them
So this
indeed.
will try and be a mental game session, we thought.
It is. So Jack and I obviously do the podcast where we address a lot of mental game stuff, but I figured it would be... So when Jack and I do those podcasts, it's in a more broad sense about being a poker player. Tom and I are going to talk today about the challenges of being a spin rake, particularly right now. Obviously, it's not lost on us. Tom and I are playing spins every day. And so we are obviously privy to the game quality, especially because we're playing hundreds, which is the highest you can play right now, which is where the games are obviously going to be the worst. And Tom, I think we've both noticed that things are a little bit more difficult than they used to be, right?
Mm-hmm. So statistically, we can talk about statistically where we had the old Chippy Vs. You can look at Still Phoenix, you can look at a lot of the shared liquidity pools, and of course we have the 651 long-term results as well. All three are trending downhill a little bit, especially since the 250 and the 500 shot naturally has made the games a bit more reggy. Naturally, we see perhaps economic conditions or perhaps whatever's happening. There's lots of, let's say, certain countries have legislation which is not helping people put money in, and every time a market gets segregated, it typically takes away the recreationals, but the regs in that area would say, well, I'll just VPN or I'll just move or whatever. And so there are lots of, let's say, factors that will combine to make the game quality slightly worse. And achievable Chippy Vs are dropping a little bit compared to where they used to be. So, previously used to be, we could all expect to see, at the hundreds, ultras, we'd expect to see, high single digits, maybe even double digit figures. I would say that's pretty unrealistic to expect that long term, depending on your table count, depending on your volume, depending on your game selection. Obviously, all these things have massive implications.
Yep.
But there's also, I think, some reasons to be positive. And I'll try and give a couple of reasons why, what I'd suggest to be positive about. So when we talk about spins, it's a bit of there's always a bit of a market conditions, and there's a bit of, we're going to do some economic theory. There's a little bit of a kind of like equilibrium that gets reached. So the leaderboards, for example, and the rake back that we get all play a part. So if you're a Diamond Club elite member, you get 65% or whatever. And then you add to it the rake back from your leaderboard position. You can see the average leaderboards I've just taken December, where I've been tracking these. This is pretty accurate. It's not a perfect representation, but it kind of reverse engineers. Someone asked me about this the other day. So someone asked me the other day about how do I track the leaderboard percentages, and basically just reverse engineer the Party Poker leaderboards. And so you can see how the Party Poker here are, they do their leaderboards with this little equation. You can kind of reverse engineer that, figure out from the total points, and then you can kind of reverse engineer it in terms of this is the average points per game for the hundreds. And then it gives you a little, well, on average then to get Sticky still playing 7,790 points, played on average 28.94 games. And then from that, you can get yourself a nice rake back percentage, 34.55%. If we added that to Diamond Club Elite, that would be, pretty close to 100% rake back here. This is on obviously the first, and then so we have 30%, 21%, 31%, 45% is pretty good, 23%, etc., etc. So you can see that with Diamond Club Elite and with rake back, with leaderboards, average leaderboard positions, rake back's looking pretty strong and pretty healthy, in terms of like 90 to 100%. Now, so what that would kind of trend towards is Chippy Vs continuing to lower, because obviously there's money to be made. If rake back equals 100%, then it's a pretty nice market condition to be in, and more people will join thinking, oh yeah, easy buck to be made here, and regs will keep jumping in, and Chippy Vs will keep being reduced a little bit until we kind of hit the equilibrium, and the equilibrium will be decided basically by comparative EVs. How much money can I make if I played 50s, or if I played hundreds on a different site, or if I played reg speeds, or if I did whatever. And so we all kind of like trend towards a certain hourly, and I think we all as poker players understand that if our hourly dropped below a certain amount, there's a threshold we'd all individually have where we'd say, actually, I'm going to try a different site. I'm going to try a different format. I'm going to try playing MTTs. I'm going to try cash games. I'm going to whatever. We all have our kind of own unique thresholds. But basically, as the kind of, let's say, achievable Chippy and achievable hourlies drop a little bit, more and more regs threshold will be reached where they'll say, actually, I don't want to grind for $100 an hour. You know what I mean? I'll go play MTTs or something. And so there is this sort of there is a fluidity where there's a certain baseline which is pretty hard to, I think, fall below a certain hourly. So this is something I've always thought in spins, that they're actually a very sustainable grind in terms of achieving somewhat of an hourly is going to be achievable, I think, for years and years and years and years. So that's something to be quite positive about. I think a lot of people often have these anxieties of like, oh, the games are going to die, etc., etc. The games won't die. I mean, it's very profitable for sites typically to put spins up. The games may become less profitable, and so maybe it moves from being achievable to make, a solid 3-digit hourly to maybe $100 an hour to maybe $75 an hour, etc., etc. But it's going to be pretty tough for it to fall significantly below $50 an hour, I think. You know what I mean? Because at that point, a lot of regs are like, well, I'm not going to, grind for $50 an hour. I'm going to go just get a normal job or something. And so there will be a certain point when that equilibrium will be reached again, where like it's probably not going to fall too much below that hourly, I would suggest. We can also see if we run some Swong Sim here. So let's do $100. Let's put in let's just say 4 chips, right? And let's put in 90% as our rate back. And you still see there, you're almost making 1% ROI with all included. And so if you played, 10,000 games in a month, you'd still make 7.6K. 4 chips is probably average to maybe slightly below average in terms of 6x1 regs. Slightly above average, by the way. Happy days for the shared liquidity pools. Well done, us. But it's definitely achievable. Higher chips are achievable if you make 6, for example. We'd be looking more at sort of 14K, 50K. Nice monthly numbers. Obviously not as nice as compared to some of the guys when they played 250s, 500s and what they were achieving. But, it's still, let's say, possible to make a nice hourly at the hundreds. And that, I think, is something that's going to be quite sustainable. So that's something to maybe help reassure a few people. Another quick point I want to make.
Okay.
Go on, Wubs. I've rambled a lot there, but I've got another quick point.
No.
So
firstly, I wouldn't characterize that as rambling. That was all very logical stuff and reassuring. But
good.
Carry on.
So how can we like I'm going to use the story, I think I've said this once before on Twitch or something, where 2 walkers are in the woods and a bear comes and he's chasing them. And one of the guys is taking his rucksack off, and the other one says, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a bear." And he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." You know what I mean? And get away. I think that's a very similar and very apt description of the current situation, where you don't have to be the best in the land to survive at these games. You just have to be in the top half, the top average. Now, what we'll probably see, and what we have actually been seeing quite a bit, is a lot of, let's say, the regs with the lower win rates are basically dropping out of the games a little bit. They're not hitting those. They're not hitting those Chippy V. They're not hitting those hourly targets. And actually, a lot of the stronger regs, of which many are in 6x1, congratulations, you lucky things, are actually finding their let's say, position in the games in terms of like achieving a nice hourly is going to be fairly, I think, stable, and so if you can work hard to be in the top half, or I mean ideally be in the top 10, top 20% of regs in the field, you will find that you will have an awful lot of sustainability in terms of playing this game for a long time, in terms of making somewhat of an hourly. Now, we can't guarantee that you're going to make $100 an hour for the next 20 years, but I would be incredibly surprised if you couldn't make $50 an hour for the next 5 years,